Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another edition of the Middle Georgia Spotlight. I'm your host, Jack Ellis. Glad to have you with us. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Caduceus Medicine and J. Franklin Automotives, and I'd like to thank the people here at WMUB Mercer University Studios for hosting us. In the spotlight this week, he has been all over the place in more ways than one in terms of making decisions, and it affects all of us, a lot of us. I think it affects the entire community. What happens in our public schools affects the entire community. So joining us today is Dr. Curtis Jones, who is the superintendent of the year, but the superintendent of the year for the entire nation, but the superintendent of Bibb County Schools. Welcome to our program.
Thank you very much, sir. Happy to be here.
Yeah, like I said, how are you doing? How are you holding up?
Doing pretty well. It has been an interesting 3 weeks, but we're hanging in there pretty well. Thank you.
Now, this is new. We've never experienced anything like this, going from the model that you have with learning to an online learning overnight. How is that going?
We have never done this before. I would say that it hasn't been done anywhere in the United States. I think it's going pretty well. We were able to do some forward planning. We had about 3 days to start figuring it out. Fortunately for us, our school system put in place some technology years ago. We started working with our teachers to improve their abilities, and I think it's gone better than most people expected.
So now this is the school, as far as in-person, is shut down for the rest of the year. That's clear.
It is. That was the order of the governor.
So, but you're still online teaching.
We're doing what we call e-learning. So
E-learning.
It's online learning, yes, sir.
Now, will all the students have the prerequisite equipment, laptops, whatever is required?
Most students in grades 3 through 12 have devices. We took about a week to issue out devices to those who said they needed them. In some cases, parents had iPads and they said those didn't work, so they were allowed to come in as well. In K-1-2 or pre-K-1-2, some have some devices, but I'm not going to say it's like a Surface Pro or an iPad. It may be a Kindle device or something like that so they can practice reading. But for those that have nothing or don't have internet, we did provide paper packets to those families.
Now, we're talking 23,000 students, you told me, pre-K through 12. 23,000 students that we're, I guess at the flip of the switch, you said 3 days, went from one model to another model. So that's a hell of a task for you.
It was. We have a great technology department that has been working with teachers to learn how to teach our teachers how to use the technology. Students have been doing it as well. We had a program called Keyboarding Without Tears for students in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade so they could learn to type at that point. So we've been moving in this direction, and one of my goals was to have a one-to-one technology in place so every student will have a device with them. This has just told me I didn't go fast enough with that idea.
Now, what about graduation? This comes right at the time when I guess the kids have already ordered their graduation gowns and the parents have decided to where the grandparents are going to travel from wherever come. What's going to happen with graduation? That's going to be online as well?
Well, right now we don't know. There is hope that we will be able to get back to some in-face contact, if you will, before the end of the school year. So what we're looking at is maybe we will have a graduation that will be virtual on the days that is currently scheduled, which is the last week of May. And then we may come back with an in-person ceremony the end of June. If we can't do June, we may try July. The board has a meeting on April 16th, and they will talk about our options at that point. But I think right now we're leaning at, let's just wait and see what we can do to let students have an opportunity to have a graduation.
Well, whereas this is a tremendous change for parents and students, it's also a tremendous change for teachers who've been trained to teach a certain model. Now they have to adapt. How is that going? Do you have any learning on the fly, if you will?
Well, we've always had great teachers and some who are learning. It's still true. And some of those great teachers are doing a great job with this as well. For those teachers who embrace technology, they were already flipping the classroom where they could give students assignments, record videos, let students look at them, give feedback. The teachers who were slow to adapt to technology have struggled more. But what this has done is put everybody in the same basket. And so we have instructional coaches, academic coaches, principals, assistant principals, working with teachers to figure this out. So I believe when we come out of this, we're going to be better than when we went into it.
Now, you have to feed a lot of children
We
because
do.
you have a lot of Title I students. I understand about 80%, whatever that number is, I don't know. But trying to feed them, that's a logistical nightmare in and of itself because the distancing. How is that going and how is it working?
It's gone better than we thought it would as well. You know, in the summer, we usually have a summer feeding program, and we would feed around 1,700 meals a day. Currently, we're feeding about 3,800 meals a day. And that is because of our nutrition department that has done a great job of identifying food, put it in baskets, and getting it out. We are currently operating out of 24 schools, and those schools are sending things out to about 75 different sites. So we're trying to feed throughout the community. But it's complicated. You still have to meet federal guidelines. And in some areas, we're not able to go into that area, so the students have to come to us. And so 3,800 meals a day we're happy with, more than we do in the summer, but it's given me a greater appreciation for what those folks do.
You know, I get, as a parent in the school system, I get pop-ups or get messages, phone calls from various teachers or various places, maybe the principal. But I haven't heard from you per se. I've heard from you on the general media. Speaking to parents, what should they know in terms of now and at the end of the school year, where they have to take a standardized test as they normally do? Will it be a pass-fail? What their children should be doing every day, and some parents are working. What's available? Now, that's a big question, but
It is. So what parents should know is that they can contact their teachers either by telephone or by email and have a conversation. What we have put in place has been changing as conditions have changed. But currently, students are expected to do about 2 classes a day, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. Each class period is about an hour and a half long, and teachers and students have a chance to engage in a program called Microsoft Teams. Most people have been able to use that and get it to work. I looked today and we had 14,000 people that actually signed onto the network to do the work that we're talking about. Parents should know that we have decided that at the end of the third 9 weeks of this school year, that's when we cut grades off, because that was the last time we really had a lot of kids who were in place for in-person instruction. The rest of the year has been about remediation. So kids, if they didn't like the grade they had, they could do work and make it up. If they were weak in a particular skill or subject, they could go in and improve that so the grade could improve. And so we're going to keep doing that. The board and I have, I've recommended to the board that this year in grades K through 8, it'll be a letter grade, A, B, C, or D, or A, B, C, or F. For high schools, it's still going to be a numeric grade because they still have to get ready for Hope Scholarship, apply for college, etc. No standardized tests this year like Georgia Milestones. The SAT and those events, ACT, have been postponed by those agencies as well. And so this is really about what I think is best. Students can learn what they want to learn. If you have a desire to master a subject, this is the time to do it. And teachers have an opportunity now to do the very best teaching they can. It may be e-learning, but this is where we have more one-on-one. And this is what we know. Teachers that have a great relationship with their students have students that learn a lot. And so that's what we're focusing on.
So parental involvement probably is more important now than any time because they are basically supervising what's going on.
That's true, because what we're asking students to demonstrate strength of character. That means you need to show up on time when it's time to do the class, you need to ask questions, and then you need to do work after class. The teacher isn't there now saying, Johnny or Jack, get back to work. The student has to do it. And in some cases, parents are trying to fill in, and parents are not teachers, and we're not asking them to be.
And some are working.
And they're working. But so are my teachers. I have teachers who are saying, I'm trying to teach my class and also help my child. But we're all in this together. And I think that becomes the lesson and the point for parents and teachers. Just tell us. When they told us they were overwhelmed, when we asked them to do 6 hours a day, we changed it. And so we have reduced that. When teachers told us they were overwhelmed, we reduced that as well. We're learning and we're getting better. And my belief is if we have a summer school, it will be virtual as well. And we will implement our learnings from this experience into summer school, so when we begin school in the fall, we'll be even better prepared to move forward.
I was going to ask about summer school, so no decision's been made yet on summer school? That's
No
still...
decision's been made yet. Again, we're waiting for conditions to clear up.
So will that be made at the end of this, what we announced, the 23rd or 13th, whatever it is that the governor put in?
I think it'll probably be made around the first or second week of May. I think, the governor today put out an order that said he was going to extend his state of emergency for public health. And so now the shelter in place order is now extended to like May 13th or May 15th. And so we're just still figuring things out as we go.
Yeah. So I guess it's safe to say that students going forward will be living in two worlds. I was listening to National Public Radio yesterday, I think, and they were saying that this virtual world and the classroom world, that students just going to be adapting, going in and out of probably for the foreseeable future. Do you see that?
I see that learning is changing. And the time when kids would come to school and get all their instruction in person is probably a thing of the past. It will be a combination. We were already looking at trying to offer a virtual school so some students could take all of our classes online if that fit better with them. This has helped us accelerate that, so we'll be able to get to it. My hope is that if not next year, then by the following year, you'll be able to sign up for 9th grade math and decide, do you want to do it in class or do you want to do it online? Just like when you go to college.
Now, you have a lot of employees,
We do.
Other than teachers, and I understand some of them have been affected, a few. I don't know how many, maybe you can share with us, been affected with this virus. How are they doing? Where are we with it?
As I was
Okay.
on my way here today, I heard from the principal of one of my high schools. The very first person we had who was affected went into the hospital. He has now gotten his second test for COVID-19 and is tested negative, so that was good. Other two individuals who also had been identified and getting tested are doing well. And so right now we've come out of this pretty well.
So that's good news.
That is great news.
That is very good news. How can the community, because we're all in this together, as you said, and we're all concerned about our students, they are our future, we hear that a lot. What should we be doing other than making sure our own students are on task and doing what they're supposed to do? How can the community at large support you in what you're doing here?
I think it falls in a couple of areas. The first area is do what we've been asked to do, which is practice social distancing, wash your hands frequently. If you feel sick, make sure you go to the doctor and self-isolate if necessary. That's the best thing we can do, and that's what I'm telling my employees. Even as we are continuing to do e-learning, we're doing the very best we can to protect them. That's what I would ask they do. I also would ask that we have patience and that we understand that this is a very stressful time. We have more people unemployed now in America than we have had in a very long time. So you have families that are going from either a family with a two-person income down to one to maybe none. Some can't eat. We have to be accepting of that and recognize it's not just parents of students, but it's also some of my teachers and my employees. Let's come together in a way so we support each other as Bibbonites, as Georgians, as Americans, and say that we can do this together. And so that's how I think we can help each other the best.
One
last thing.
Yeah.
And let students know that this is a challenge for them because this is the one year that will not be given back. We're going to try and make up for this in the fall, but we can't make up for all of it. They need to show strength of character and do the very best learning they can at this point.
Well, we've been speaking with Dr. Curtis Jones, who's the superintendent of the Bibb County School System, some 23,000 students, and God knows how many parents and guardians that looking to him for leadership and guidance here in our town, as I am. And we wish him the best, as he said, how we can support him by supporting the students, doing what's right for in each one of our lives, and we'll get through this together. We ask that you stay right where you are. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about this. We're going to speak to the sheriff of this county. As you know, he's been given authority by the governor to enforce the shelter in place and whatever else orders are out. And we're going to ask him about the truancy program,
Okay.
about your students who should be in school studying all day. If he sees them on the streets, what's your advice and how you are going to coordinate to make sure these students are still on task? We owe them that.
I agree.
We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Middle Georgia Spotlight. As I said before we went to break, we were speaking to Dr. Curtis Jones that we would have our Sheriff David Davis, to join us to talk about some of the do's and don'ts during this shutdown. Welcome to our program, Sheriff.
Thank you for having me, Sheriff. I appreciate
Well, we
it.
got 15 minutes. We're going to try to get as much as we can because there's a lot of information, misinformation. Number one, what we should know is that the sheriffs throughout the state of Georgia has been, not deputized, I guess, but has been assigned by the governor to enforce his order.
That's right. That's
throughout
right.
the state or throughout your jurisdiction.
That's right. And the reason that the governor specified the sheriffs is all sheriffs throughout the state are at that level statewide officers, and that we're under the jurisdiction of the governor. So much so that if a sheriff resigns or get in trouble, it's the governor that makes the decision on those kinds of things. So the governor does have some control over the sheriffs, as opposed to like a police department, a city police department, that falls under the mayors and a municipal government. But the sheriffs are sort of state level officers and therefore under the purview of the governor, and the governor can put whatever duties he wants to onto the sheriffs.
So this is a statewide order, so you are able to do work all over the state.
That's
as
right.
it were,
Each of the 159 sheriffs throughout Georgia is responsible for their jurisdiction, but then we also have jurisdiction throughout Georgia as sheriffs. So that's why the governor sort of asked us to help along with the Georgia State Patrol as well as the Department of Public Health. So all of those entities have some state level responsibilities, and that's how we were tasked with helping to enforce this order.
Now, we've been under this order now about 4 or 5 days. How is it going in your location? Are people adhering? Are they paying attention? Or are they still going about their business?
For the most part, we get a few calls for people that are congregating, particularly in parks and places like that, and in some outside areas where people are congregating more than 10 people and closer than the 6 feet social distancing requirement, and we're handling those along and along. But for the most part, people, especially at night, are adhering to the order and are staying in. And one of the things it says that there are a lot of things that are considered essential and are still open. Grocery stores, convenience stores, drug stores, liquor stores, yes, liquor stores. All of those kinds of things are considered as essential. Gas stations, I've noticed even car washes and car repair places. So there's a lot of broadness in what's considered essential. And so when we see people out, we are going to assume that they are headed to one of those essential locations. And so there has to be another cause for us to stop them, a traffic violation or some type of other suspicious activity. We're not just going to go around stopping everybody and ask them, are you going to an essential location?
But it's up to your discretion. It's up to the sheriff's discretion as to how he tells his officers to comply or how to enforce this.
Exactly. And I don't think the governor, and even in his intent, he wasn't expecting us to become a police state where we're stopping everybody and asking them, where are you going? Show proof that you're going to the grocery store, the doctor, or the drugstore, or something like that. We're just going to take everybody as being an honest broker and figure everybody's going somewhere essential. And you can tell there is a marked decrease in traffic on the roads. It's almost like a weekend or a Sunday traffic, especially downtown, that you can see the difference in people are adhering to this order and are keeping to themselves.
Yeah, I had on the first part of this program before you came in the studio, the superintendent of schools, and we talked about truancy a bit, and I told him I would bring that up to you because children are still in school. This is not spring break. They should be at home in school. Of course, they run errands. Some of them will have to run errands for their parents or for their household. How are you policing children truancy, or are you?
Well, when we see them out, and that's where a lot of these younger folks are sort of violating the social distancing and the grouping categories of the order. So you'll see a lot of kids hanging out, being too close, and we'll explain to them of what the order is and to move on. And a lot of the schools, and the Bibb County schools and even the private schools, are doing a lot of home work, and they're doing a lot of online instruction. So these kids, they do have lessons. They should be at home. So we ask them, and I can understand in some of our neighborhoods that's a burden on some of these kids
where they may be several kids in the house and there may be only one computer, or in some cases no computers for them to do their lesson. And so, you know, they're entities, and I hope the school system are trying to help with getting those kids caught up so they don't fall far behind when school does start back.
Yeah. That's one thing that the superintendent was saying, how they're going through this grading. And they're not going to take the standardized test this year. They waived that.
Yeah.
But students are still expected to do their homework
That's right.
online. So it's up to parents. And I'm sure you would tell parents, keep your children at home during the day, get them off the street,
Keep your
help
children
you.
at home. Find them, even if they don't have any lesson or anything. I know Georgia Public Broadcasting during the daytime hours are broadcasting educational type shows. It's almost Georgia in the classroom, I think they call it. But there are educational programs that are going on all through the day. So if they don't have any online learning, set them in front of the TV and get a history lesson or a geography lesson through Georgia Public Broadcasting.
Well, we're giving them a specific lesson here as to how the sheriff
That's
operates.
right. That's true. That's right.
And we're going to promote this show to make sure people, because a lot of misinformation, disinformation out as to what's permissible, what's not permissible. Right. Now, we know that crime is still, sometimes doesn't take a vacation or doesn't go shelter in place.
That's true.
Are you seeing more, like you say, you don't see too many people out at night, not too many cars, businesses are closed? Are you seeing criminals trying to take advantage of this situation?
We have, and that is one of the things that we are being watchful for, because, you know, even most of the essential places are shut down after 10, 11 o'clock. And we have had some issues where we have caught people trying to break in businesses and that sort of thing, and our deputies have been very vigilant on that and have made a couple of cases on people trying to burglarize some closed businesses. So that's where our sort of emphasis is later on at night, even if people are wandering through neighborhoods, because really at that point in time they really should be in, although this is certainly not a curfew. And as I said before, this is certainly not martial law, but because of the scarcity of essential places, even places like Walmart and places that are normally open 24/7 are even closed now. So there's very few places that are essential. So if someone is out at that time of the night, particularly lurking around closed businesses and neighborhoods, it bears a little bit of scrutiny from our deputies.
You know, we spoke earlier about the essential things that's essential, liquor stores, drug stores, food stores, obviously. But what about the house? You know, we're approaching Easter coming up here. Of course, this show will air a little day after Easter. But if a pastor wanted to have 10 to 15 people in the congregation, as long as they're, and still celebrate Easter, Coleman Hill, sunrise service, as long as they are part, you're not going to shut them down like they're doing in some cities.
You know, that's you know, you have to be very broad and use some common sense and discretion in enforcing these type things. Open air, and if you're outside and you're practicing the social distancing guidelines, the wind is going to blow anything away. The sunshine is going to help to alleviate any kind of issue. So those kinds of things, we look at it on a case-by-case basis. If everybody's standing there like a football huddle and they're all on top of each other, now you might want to talk to them about the social distancing guidelines and that sort of thing. But if a few people are practicing distancing like they should, and especially at Easter, and I know a lot of religious houses of worship are doing online things. Some of them are doing drive up in the parking lot, and they're being very innovative and creative, and I'm sure we'll see some of that at Easter time.
Yeah. Not only are you responsible for putting people in jail, you're responsible for keeping them there. You're in charge of,
right.
And you have inmates there, the federal, state, waiting or whatever, waiting for trial. And I've been listening, been hearing about if this pandemic gets inside of this virus, gets in a closed environment like that, the devastation that it can cause. What are you doing, if anything, to prevent that from happening in your facility?
Yes, sir. We were ahead of that probably 2 or 3 weeks before this really got in the forefront, because we kind of saw this coming. And you got to think about, in a jail, we face these kind of issues every day. People come in with all types of communicable diseases. You can get a flu outbreak in a jail. You can get staph infection. There's a whole lot of different illnesses and diseases that could come into a jail. And so some of these practices are already in place all the time anyway. So, but we have ramped up because if you think about it now, so far we've not had any case in the jail. So in that little capsule in the jail is probably one of the safest places to be as far as the virus goes. So the most vulnerable place is where our people first come in at intake when they get brought into the jail. What we have started doing is we have a special part of the jail that is sort of isolated area that everybody that comes to the jail for the first 2 weeks that they're there, they're placed in this particular part of the jail to sort of make sure that they're not having illness or anything like that. So after that, so to speak, quarantine period, then they're put in the regular population. And then we have another part that if we do have a person that comes down with the illness, that they will be isolated also. And the judges have given us a little bit of discretion that if we do have somebody that comes in and is sick or vulnerable in any kind of health ways, that we can let them out. We can give them a own recognizance bond and let them get out of jail or get them to the hospital or wherever they need to be. So we've been given some leeway by the judges, and we've used just some common sense and some standard practices about how to keep it clean, and we're constantly disinfecting and cleaning the booking area where people come in, and we've had a company come in and do some specialized cleaning and through a lot of our facilities also. So we just have to stay on top of it and try to isolate when we can.
What about your police officers, the deputies?
Yeah.
What special precaution are they? I was looking this morning on TV in New York City, a couple of police officers, frontline people have perished, died from this. What are you doing? Are they wearing special protective masks and all of that? Are you going to that?
They do. They have the masks. We had a lady that was kind enough that's making us some masks. She made a few for patrol and is making some more for the patrol officers and the jail officers. Plus, we have supplies in. Gloves, masks, that sort of thing. And they're not wearing these at every single call. If they get a call that there's a reason to believe that someone is sick or has the COVID-19, certainly they put on the mask and the gloves. But they're, as much as they can, practicing the social distancing when they are interacting with the citizens. But just by the mere nature of our job, sometimes they have to put hands on somebody, and if those cases come up, they take what precautions that they can.
We have about a minute left. Anything that we miss, anything that the public should know? Of course, like you said, no curfew, but you shouldn't be out unless you're going to one of these essential services.
That's true. So and just to say that, the public has been very good here in Macon Bibb. We've not really had any issues with anybody, any egregious violations of that. And just remember, we're very resilient as a community and very resilient as people. We'll get through this. Everybody, this is some unprecedented times. These are certainly unheard of in any of our lifetimes of having this broad and severe of restriction placed on our movement and that sort of thing. But it's for the reason to keep this virus from spreading, and everybody's been really good about it. And let's just hunker on down and we'll get through this thing.
Well, Sheriff, we thank you. We can be blessed here in Bibb County. We know that we are in good hands with you at the helm, and hopefully everyone adhere to the rules that's been put out by the governor, and you are to enforce them. We can't get mad at you because you're enforcing them, because it's for our own benefit and for our own sake here in Macon, Bibb County. We've been speaking with Sheriff David Davis, who, of course, is in charge of enforcing the governor's lockdown, if you will, here in Bibb County, but he has jurisdiction all over the state. So do what's important, do what's right, stay safe. Until next week, I'm your host, Jack Ellis. Goodbye.